Okay, let's get stitching. I have my design up here on my screen and I am going to stitch the coffee cups, and I'm stitching these in this part of the demonstration in the A6 size. So I have already stitched the first side because we're just going to repeat the same thing. And what I want to do, because the coffee cups are standing upright, what I need to do is use my software within the machine to flip that design over so that my coffee cups aren't facing down on the other half of my notebook cover. Once I've done that, click OK. Now when I stitch, I like to turn my stitching to show exactly what is going to stitch out in the next. And I'm going to select go to stitch the first colorway. So each of these designs has the front and the back cover each have 4 different colorways on them. So here I've got my outline, and you can see I've got my embroiderer's felt and my main fabric. I lay those over the outline. Doesn't matter if it's a little bit larger, does matter if it's a little bit smaller. And then I stitch colorway 2 to hold those stitches down, or to hold those fabrics down, sorry. Now you can see just here what we've got is the alignment line that we are going to put the facing for the notebook cover on. Once we've stitched the fabrics down, colorway 3, we'll stitch the quilting or the decorative stitching onto our design. Okay, so we now have our stitching complete. I'm loving this little coffee design. As something different on this particular stitching design, I am going to include a snap tab closure. Now, there's a little minor or small video of how to make the snap tab closure included in this video. And I've got my closure here made out of excess fabric. I need to place the closure down, and I'm playing around with how this is going to go. So it needs to go face up or ugly side up. So this is my lovely stitching, and the ugly stitching is on the back. One side always looks better than the other. I am going to, and I could tape that down for a little bit of extra security if I wish to, which obviously is working so well so far. This is not a mandatory, this is just one way to ramp up the design and do something different with it. From there, I'm going to take my lining fabric and lay the lining fabric over, butted up against the markings that we made, just there and just there, before stitching the 4th colorway to hold that lining fabric down, or that facing fabric. Once you've finished stitching, I want you to come along and trim up quite close to that first line of stitching and re-hoop, ready for the last design to put the entire thing together. And we are on to the final design. The final design, if I just scan over here, is the spine that holds our entire project of the notebook cover together. So what I'm going to do is stitch out the first colorway, which is going to show me exactly where I am going to place the front and the back cover that we have already stitched. And what I've got here, is the first half of the design, and what I'm trying to do is lay that line of stitching on top of this line of stitching. Once I've done that, and it's okay if you're a millimetre or two out, but if you're like 5 or 10 millimeters out, that's a problem. So I've got that side done. I then pause the machine so that I can set the other side. And both of those fabrics are now held down within this design. The next row of stitching is going to show us exactly where we are going to place our cork. I've made it really easy on myself with this design, and I have used the straight cork design. I take my piece of cork and lay it over the outline. I'm going to be a little bit stingy because I figure I can use the extra bit of cork from something else. And then colorway 4 tacks the cork down. From there, I'm going to come through and trim away the excess cork. I'm going to get rid of that thread there too. Always trim away from the outside. You really do not want to stuff it up and take it out of the middle. Trust me, I know. From there, we stitch colorway 5, which is the satin stitch, holding the cork to the fabric. We are now up to the last 2 sets of stitches. These are the stitches that are going to hide all of the messy little bits of our design. So we are going to stitch out colorway 6, which is going to show us where to place the last piece of facing fabric. From there, we take our last piece of facing fabric. I'm going to move the hoop down here so that I can show you exactly what I'm doing. Lay it over the design, and we stitch colorway 7 to complete the design. So what I'm going to show you here is how I merge 2 designs on my screen, which then allows me to use a larger hoop. Now, all of this depends on the size of hoop that you have, and obviously each machine works differently, and you will have to consult your own manual on how to do things for your machine. But the first thing I'm going to do is select the hoop that I'm going to be using. So I'm using the 230 by 300 millimeter hoop. From there, I'm going to start layering my designs in. Now, you have to put your designs in the order in which they are going to be stitched. So obviously, I want to do the quilting design first, and then I want to add the spine to my notebook cover. Once my design is in, I can come through and I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees, and then I'm going to move that down the screen. I then want to come through and load in my spine design that I've chosen. And once again, I need to rotate that. And the way that I have created these spine designs, if I just come up a little bit, is it gives you a line just along here, which is the line that you match up to your or to the edge of your notebook stitching. So once I'm happy with how that design is sitting, and if I want to move anything, say I want to move the first design, I just select it and then move it around wherever I want it to go. Once I'm happy with that, I click on OK, and I am ready to stitch out the last of my designs. And you can see here I'm just going to make a little change just so that I'm equidistant on both of those. That's better. Okay, we are ready to stitch again. So first things first, we stitch the outline showing exactly where we are going to put down our embroiderer's felt and main fabric. And lay that fabric over, making sure we cover up those seams, and stitch the second colourway. Second colourway just secures that fabric down. And I can't help it, I have to smooth out as I go. Third colourway is going to do our quilting. Okay, so we now have our quilting done and we are ready to again add the lining. So we've got our markings just here. I'm going to come through and add the lining fabric, remembering that you want the folded over flap to be facing you, not inside. And always just trying to get that perspective right. Now you do need to make sure when you are coming up that you don't lift that up with your presser foot. So a little stiletto would also be a good deal there. So that then completes that second stage. Now, what I have prepped while I was stitching out the quilting is my other piece, and I've trimmed it to basically where the stitching starts and just come up, say, 1/4 of an inch or so on the sides there. So the first set of stitching is going to show where we are going to place these fabric panels. And good news, I was pretty well right on time on that one. And then we've got line 2 there, which is where I am going to come. Now, I could stitch this line again, makes no real difference, because what I'm really interested in is lining up the second line. Remembering if you don't have that larger hoop, you would be doing each of these steps. Now I'm going to pause the machine when it comes over, and I'll zoom you guys in so that you can see exactly what it is that I am doing. So here is my line of stitching, and here is what I'm going to marry that up to. Now, if you're a millimetre out or 2, you're fine. If you're like 10 millimetres out, you are not fine. The next set of stitching is going to show where we are going to lay our cork down. So we have our outline here showing where we should be placing our cork. I am going to take my fabric and lay it equally over that outline area. Now you don't have to use cork, you can use any sort of decorative fabric. And then I will stitch out the next colorway to hold that down. There is just something about using cork though, it's just such an elegant finish to whatever you are doing. And I want to come through and just move my hoop forward. And I'm taking my squeeze scissors and coming along and trimming away the excess fabric. Remember, you want to trim from the outside. I have actually stuffed this up once when I wasn't paying attention, and I took the cork fabric away from this part in the middle, making it totally useless. Please do be smarter than me, or than I. Okay, so we have now taken away all that excess fabric, we are now ready to do the satin stitching around the cork. Okay, we are now down to the last two colorways. Second last colorway is going to show us where we need to place the final piece of lining fabric. This piece of lining fabric is incredibly important because it is the fabric that covers everything up. You want to make sure that you don't catch this fabric, as it will rip everything out of the hoop. So now that we've got those lines to work with, we take our last piece of fabric and make sure that we are covering up all those areas and stitch the last colorway. So our stitching is now complete. Let's come over to the workbench to trim and press and make it all pretty and finish everything. Okay, so here I'm going to stitch a really quick snap closure for my notebook cover. It only has two colors on it. The first color is going to show me where to place my cork. And when you place your cork, you are going to place it doubled over. So this is my cork, and you can see I've got it doubled over. And I'm going to lay that over the outline and stitch the second colorway, which is going to hold those layers together. So now that cover is complete, I'm just going to remove it from the stabilizer, trim off the excess threads, and then trim around the stitching to 1 or 2 millimeters. Let me grab my scissors. And there I have my strap ready to attach into my notebook cover. Okay, so here I've got my project in the hoop. I'm going to remove that. Put my hoop away and remove the excess stabilizer. Now, you don't have to get off every single tiny bit. What I'm looking for is just the majority, and certainly anything around the edges. The next thing I want to do is trim, and probably to about 1/4 of an inch around my design. Remembering, of course, that this is the inside and that you're not going to see this. What we want to do is make it as easy to prepare and to press as possible. So, I've taken all of those bits and I've got my iron turned on, and it is a warm iron because I don't want to hurt the felt. So the first thing that we are going to do is take this first flap of fabric, the last piece of fabric that we laid down, and turn it through. Once that's turned through, I'm going to come over to my iron Once that's turned through, I'm going to come over here to my iron and I am going to press that seam on both sides. So that's already starting to look a bit nicer there. From there, we take both sides of our notebook cover and turn them in. If you need to get a blunt pair of scissors or a stiletto, you can do that just to turn the edges out correctly. And then again, we just want to press. You can use a pressing cloth if you wish. I know we all have different ways that we prefer to press. And I am now ready to take my notebook and slide it into the cover, and that is my notebook completed. I'm actually loving, I was a little worried about how this multi-tonal thread was going to look, but I am really happy with it. So I'm going to make a half a dozen of these. I want something that my nieces who are in primary school can give to their teachers, and I think this would make a lovely teacher gift for the end of the year. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Until next time, keep on stitching. Bye.